This is delightful. I'm so glad we came here. Feel those vibrations at Camp Video Games. Well, howdy campers. Welcome to Camp Video Games. This is Junior Counselor Sean, joined as always by his pal and confidant and partner in crime and Coke Junior Counselor Josh.
Hey. Did you say Coke Junior Counselor?
No, just co-junior counselor.
Oh, no. The pipe weed that the counselors consume is of the earth. All right? It's natural, but the kids need to keep their fingies out of it.
If anything, you'd be a Pepsi junior counselor.
That's right.
We're a Pepsi podcast. Here at Camp Video Games, we talk about video games and video game adaptations. That's when you take something and you put it to something else. In this case, we're talking about episode 2 of A Fox in Space, which is a fan-made animated series based on Nintendo's Star Fox. In previous episodes, we discussed the first episode of A Fox in Space, and
Bingo.
And then the first game in the Star Fox series for the Super Nintendo. So if you've not heard those, please give those a listen. They're genuinely swell. But Fox in Space 2, this came nearly 8 years after A Fox in Space episode 1 launched. And good golly, has like the production of like the production quality, just the general quality, and it's just they really like grew up and improved and just delivered something that we don't deserve. Like, it's so good.
My first viewing of it,
very good.
I was mostly like I feel like I wasn't even taking it in because I was sad that I was like, why can't YouTube be more of this?
Yes.
Why can't YouTube be more like actual thoughtful creative work and not just people going, hey guys, let me tell you what was bad about this game so I can get engagement from people arguing.
yes, absolutely. It's this is art versus content.
Yeah.
A Fox in Space is art. It's thoughtful. It's got a message, and it relays humanity in a way that none of that like saccharine YouTube content creator bullshit can go. And you know, pardon me if I start every episode with "Howdy campers," but that's
we try to keep it to a minimum. But you know, we have our moments that we have to play the game. It's fine.
And then we talk about the adaptation of the game. So we gave our pretty lengthy preamble to the making of A Fox in Space in the first episode's discussion. So let's just jump right in.
Yeah, because you gave the history, and I think between then and now is mostly documented like on the Fox in Space YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Because they release content updates over time.
That's right. Have you watched any of that? I haven't really watched the making of stuff.
Not a ton. I've watched some of like the voiceover stuff. And I've seen that like he's done demos of, here's like how we've implemented Blender and its lighting effects into episode 2, but I haven't like watched it to know exactly like, this is exactly what he did and where kind of level.
I'm sure for the right minds, like I'm not an animator, nor am I a very talented digital artist. So I'm always impressed by the fluid nature of how people are able to just work on their projects in live, in live time in front of their fans.
Yeah,
because Matthew
like
Gafford,
in live
the
stream format.
Director, writer, producer, primary voice actor, just the main mind behind A Fox in Space, has been very transparent in all of the different assets going into it, and it's not just a one-man show at this point. There's a lot of contributors and specifically a lot of Patreon supporters. Just like to jump around a little bit, at the very end of this episode, when the credits roll and you see the list of Patreon supporters, you're like, oh, that's a, we were talking in our Star Fox Super Nintendo discussion how could there be a community built around just a single
property, like
property.
an IP. Yeah,
this is the community. It's the Fox and Space community seems to be way more coherent than the Star Fox community that Nintendo is just kind of sitting on.
That's actually a really good point. This is so much. There's so much more depth to it than anything Star Fox, especially because any fan of Star Fox knows it ended in 1997 with Star Fox 64.
But what about the wonderful titles that followed that are definitely not just completely besmirched with like horrible like reception?
I don't know. At least Star Fox Adventure provided this wonderful landscape that we're able to camp at for this
cozy
series. For anybody, if you're watching us on YouTube, you can come hang out by the fire. It's cozy.
That's right.
This was apparently a part of a Star Fox game. Why there's a temple with waterfalls in a Star Fox game, I don't know. But let's talk more about Fox in Space.
Yes. Okay. So as this show starts, they're already following up on how episode 1 started with a previously on.
Yeah.
This is just great. So you think about linear storytelling, right? Page 1 is the beginning of the story. Page 2 is the middle. Page 3 is the end of the story. That's how a traditional story is told. Nope, not here. Episode 2 of A Fox in Space, 10 years before the events of episode 1. Already they're just like, oh, chef's kiss, like, go for it. Yes, like, I'm on board. I don't need to know what happens yet. I'm just happy to get more of this world. I'm not interested necessarily in the story of A Fox in Space. I'm interested in spending time with these characters in their world. That's the success that they have accomplished in this fan animated project for YouTube. Like, they have really just hit the human button of what works for Star Fox.
Yeah. When it started, I was initially like, oh man, it's going to be a prequel episode that has nothing to do with anything I already saw. That seems kind of cheap or cheated for people who waited for 7 years.
Yeah.
And within a couple minutes, I'm like, nah, good. We're good. I'm in. Let's go.
Yep. So we finally get to meet General Pepper in the Fox and Space universe. We're familiar with him from the games. He's always the talking head that gives Fox a little bit of instruction in between levels. But here, we get to see a good boy who loves a good lollipop. Now, I'm just going to go out on a limb. I think General Pepper has THC in that lollipop.
Oh, probably. Yeah.
He's getting roasted on lollipops.
We
Pepper,
start.
go for it.
Yeah. With Pepper is with James McCloud, not Fox McCloud.
Right. We got
and Peppy Hare.
Yeah. Fox's papa.
Yeah, and he's giving the backstory stuff, to set up. Okay, here's where the starting line of the episode is, and yeah, it's sets up that Andros was banished to Venom for some reason.
Yeah.
And pretty much like most of what he says is actually in the opening scroll of Star Fox 64.
That's right.
Which is bonkers. We can talk more about that in the next episode when we talk about Star Fox 64.
So excited.
It does a Star Wars style opening scroll, and it's all about like, hey, here's what happened to the main character's dad.
Yeah.
And okay, by the way, the enemy's attacking. It's
Right.
like how the opening scroll of that game goes. So this is like very similar part. Very similar story, just told from a different point of view.
And so what's going on here is that General Pepper, he's calling in a favor that James McCloud owes him from some that not totally disclosed yet as to what happened, but something that happened on Titania, which keeps getting brought up in the Fox and Space series. And so he's basically reinstating Fox and Peppy into the Cornerian Air Force so that they can be official, dignitaries in relation to Venom.
We get a hint here that Venom is in what's his name? What's his last name again?
Gafford.
Matt Gafford's world is not just this like ball of poison where an evil lair is.
Yeah.
There's actually intergalactic or within this galaxy like politics that are different from planet to planet. And I was watching the whole thing as like sort of a Cold War
Yeah.
kind of style setup where like Corneria is, everything west of the wall, and like Venom is like the USSR basically.
Sure. That's a good way of putting it. There's the editing in A Fox in Space as you watch it, there's a lot of quick cuts. It's very modern, flashy editing, but there's also a lot of really great stylized moments I'd like to get to as we go along. But we see a few stills implying the kinds of Andros, evil. What is he? An orangutan? You think?
Yes. Yeah.
So Andros he's a mad scientist essentially. He seems to be a scientist without scruples. And we see a few stills of like what Andros was capable of some cruelty in his experiments. We see him working in a lab, and there's a brain stem. It's being preserved, and there's eyeballs being preserved in like a biotank. And then we see another where there's like another primate is on a table staring at a circular saw as Andros is like just stone faced. I think Andros was banished from Corneria. I'm going to put on my little speculation trousers. I think he was banished from Corneria because of like unethical like experimentation.
Right. And so this is where the whole episode's going to be setting up that like Gafford has some sort of backstory built to the Star Fox world in his mind now that will ideally come out in the next episode. Again, I have a lot of thoughts. I think I'm just going to try to hold until we get to the scenes where they're most pertinent.
Yeah, and who knows when we're going to get episode 3? That has to be stated too. We're not going to be covering it in this original series as we go along. It's going to probably be a while before we get to see episode 3. But I am very excited.
Camp Video Games season 22. We'll cover it. Yeah,
hopefully it'll be that soon. But the backstory that Gafford's kind of like establishing here in A Fox in Space, it's all rooted in assets from the game. Like there's nothing coming completely out of left field here. There's enough to make connections.
Yeah, even like the biggest mysteries we'll get to.
Yeah, absolutely
connected. Yeah.
So we're establishing now that like James and Peppy are going to have to interact with the Venom government.
Yeah, some dignitary type work.
Yeah. And Venom in this case, it's not just like a deserted planet that's just like a hellscape. It still seems to be a very as it's called later in the episode, it's called such an ugly planet. Yeah. But it seems that Andros, being the brilliant scientist that he is, has populated this place, and he's drawn maybe refugees from other planets to Venom, and he's amassing an empire as an exile. Is that like Napoleon's kind of arc?
Napoleon did it more by force, That's why I sort of like compare it to the USSR, where they just sort of said like, all of this is ours, and then they tried to build up and build up and build up, and they went down because their economy tanked from being isolated from the rest of the world, and people got tired of being thrown in gulags and such.
Yeah,
they probably would have risen up against them eventually anyway. But this is setting up more of a Napoleon-like arc of like, okay, let's amass all of our power, and we're going to build an empire from this seat of revolution that we've taken.
Yeah, and so General Pepper, call him the status quo of the Lilat system. He's like the military head of Corneria. He's not the premier of Corneria. We'll get into that character who's not even introduced directly later, but Pepper, he's head of the military and he wants to maintain the status quo. And the status quo really essentially means keeping Andros as far away from Corneria as possible. So he sends James and Peppy to go get outfitted with R-Wings.
New ships. We don't know what they're called yet.
Yeah. And they're going to get it. They're going to, be supplied those from Beltino Toad, who I assume is Slippy's father.
Well, yeah. That's pretty obvious.
I mean, well, obviously he's a toad and Slippy is a toad, but and he's the tech guy. So it's just, and we cut to Beltino. He looks like, he looks kind of like John Waters. If he was a toad, maybe.
Yeah, he's just got this sort of French scientist vibe.
Yeah. But Beltino, he gets ambushed by a couple of thugs. One looks like a fox. Excuse me. One looks like a fox, and the other one looks like, I couldn't really tell what the other one was. Like he was like kind of like a bear.
Oh, I have answers.
Go, please. Yes.
I'll expand upon this later. Why? It's a bandicoot and a hedgehog.
Oh, dude, no way.
Hang on for how hilarious and silly it is.
No, I love you. Okay, so we see Beltino get he gets bombed in the head, and then the intro, then the episode title is given. It's again with Gafford. He loves these he complicates things with his edits to some degree, but it gives it such a sheen of professionalism that the episode is titled "Fixing a Hole," and I want to save discussion of the episode title.
The episode title has another thing that's
loaded.
Very, very nice little touch.
Yeah. So, So, "Fixing a Hole," episode 2. Fox in Space goes into the thugs are interrogating Bell, as he's called, Beltino Toad, about the R-Wing, and they've got Rob 64, who
is great.
I love his inclusion in this so much. Rob 64, if you played Star Fox 64, he's the one that was sending supplies. What is it? Location confirmed, sending to supplies. And they've got him. He's tied to a work table, and his head is in a vice. And he's tied with electrical cords. So it's this is kind of, it's menacing. They're we're gonna smash your friend's head because he's just a sentient robot. He seems to be how Star Wars treats droids, right? It's just he's all beep, beep, bop, 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 but he's also oh dear, very, very much like a C-3PO type of spirit.
Yeah. So this interrogation scene.
Yeah.
Okay. This.
So yeah, Bell, he's tied to a chair. He's got his buddy Rob 64 tied to a table, and then we got our bad boys here.
Okay. So I was a Nintendo Power subscriber. And
got a big collection of them right behind you.
Yeah. So they, in the mid 90s, when big games were coming out, they would send a promo video that was a whole production. They would do sketches. They'd do have some just dopey guy taking you around the studio, blah 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 blah, and showing you oh, here's all the cool new things coming out. And the first one I remember was Donkey Kong Country.
Yeah.
And fun little personal detail is I was really into making movies when I was really young. We had a big handheld camcorder, and me and my sister would want to make movies, but our parents were too cheap to buy us blank VHS tapes.
Yeah.
So I wish I had saved these, but instead we took the videos that Nintendo would send me, because we'd be these are the only videos we know our parents don't care about, that we could just record whatever we want on them.
Heaven forbid you were to tape over Death Becomes Her, or
a family video or something.
Sure.
And they didn't want to spend money on blank tapes, so we use those, and we would there's a little clip, a little slot in the front of a VHS to protect it from overwrite, and so we just put tape over that so we could record over it.
Kids, if you don't know what he's talking about, we're gonna need to see some ID.
So that's how we would make our movies. Okay, Why is that relevant to this?
Yeah.
This scene is shot for shot. I think I have to go back and rewatch it, but it was like, oh, wait, I know this. It's from the Star Fox 64 promo video.
Are you kidding me?
That's why it's a bandicoot and a hedgehog.
No.
I'll show you when we're done recording.
We'll share that. We'll share that too on the Instagram.
It's so cheesy. They have like it's this pilot in an orange jumpsuit tied up, and it's a guy in a Sony shirt and a guy in a Sega shirt.
Yeah.
And they're interrogating and be like, tell us about the hot new game you got coming out.
Oh my God.
And so even the part where one of these guys goes "Beep, beep, 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 beep," and you think it's just like a joke they put in that's all. This entire like 30 seconds of this scene is word for word from that.
I feel like I just
so
tried
silly.
like hard drugs for the first time. I am like melting in my chair with satisfaction right now. I had no idea about this. That is, I've watched A Fox in Space probably like more than a dozen times at this point now, and to learn that is so cool, dude. Oh God.
What's cool about it
Don't do
is,
drugs.
like, I didn't get it at first. It like took a minute to sink in. So I was just like, wow, this is tonally so bizarre that it must just be part of the humor. And it's funny because when you watch the original promo video, it's like, this sucks. This is so stupid. You know? And like the acting's really bad.
Yeah, of course.
And then when you take it and you put it in the tone and context of this show, it is hysterical.
Man.
And like sets up these characters so well that we'll see a little bit throughout the episode.
God, that is so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for just like blowing my mind. I'm so early in the episode already. We're so good.
Yeah, those promo videos are etched in my brain because I would watch and rewatch them because they work on a 12-year-old.
Yeah,
You
oh,
know,
yeah.
I'm like, I can't effing wait for Donkey Kong Country.
So there some of the edits in this are as they go through and they do this real quick cut to Rob's face as they laugh, and it like jumps back and forth. Do you remember if that's also from it? From the promo video
I don't
too?
think so. I think it's just that first like 30 seconds. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure that's how the promo opens, and then it goes into like actual, you know,
Yeah.
promotional BS stuff, PR stuff.
To go on with what's going on in A Fox in Space, like they give a little backstory to this backstory, which is also a backstory to episode 1. So this is we're in triple backstory right now, where how the thugs, their names are Sonny and Sagan. They dressed up as pizza guys, and they had like an ion blaster or something in a pizza box that the hedgehog opens the pizza box and it's like.
And the cover of the box is, I think it's the same design that's on the Rob 64 boxes.
Oh
when you
wow,
get
that's great. Oh, like the supplies that you.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
get? I thought I was gonna say like Comet Ping Pong or something.
And it's also like tonally very similar to how in the first episode they tell in real time like this fake story about what Wolf did with Fox's clothes.
Yes.
Like this is innocuous backstory, and then we physically see it.
Yeah.
It's a nice callback to like how he structured the first episode.
Yeah, for sure. Gafford he produced. He just did so much on this. So I just really see this as his project, despite the massive number of contributors to it. Under threat of like Rob 64 getting killed, Bell agrees to cooperate, and then it goes into the intro, and we get this great. It's like an action movie, spy noir. It's so stylized, and it's one of those great kind of like heroic. Everyone gets their hero edit for their character intros.
Right.
We get James McLeod, Peppy Hare. Peppy's great. He's like, if you were thinking about like the A
It's
team,
like Solid Snake.
I'm thinking about like the A Team, which I tried to rewatch kind of recently, the old series, and this seems kind of inspired by the way that they did the intro for the A Team, where it's just like all these badasses that are like this guy's good with guns, this guy's good with knives, and like all that type of stuff. It's just we get these great like close up like headshots of all of the major players in the show. And it just makes it, and like we're only a few minutes into this, and it makes them seem already so familiar. And like you're like, okay, I'm ready to continue this story with my friends. It's not I'm being introduced to anything. It's like I'm caught up now.
Yeah, like just how things are physically framed and edited establishes so much of like the world and the characters and the relationships. And yeah, even like the minor characters at the end get flashbacks. We have a table or a mat with tools and marbles and a fake hand.
Yes, and you can see the slingshot too in the corner of it.
That's why the fake hand slingshot thing that we're gonna see in a few minutes here. Everything is there. You get in 30 seconds. You're like, okay, I've got the world. We're ready to dive in.
Absolutely. So it goes on with Peppy and James. They're driving to Beltino. He's over at the building is called Space Dynamics Research and Development, and this is it's just a very atmospheric, moody, like nighttime shot. There's a lot of dynamic lighting in this episode.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous. Like the animation style is very fluid, and the coloring is like nice and bold. It's like clear line, and the main conversation that Peppy and James are having right now is that like Peppy doesn't know what he's getting himself into. James seems to have a bit more of an idea, and like Peppy's like James's like right hand man. No pun intended, because James is missing a hand, which is not explained, and it does come into play later. So we'll save that. But yeah, Peppy's just got a bad feeling about this mission. He doesn't like that he's like that James had to be kind of convinced into taking this mission. Like he's like, what did General Pepper do for you that would make you just kind of like blindly go into this obviously dangerous mission? And James says, quote, "I made a mistake. Pepper made it go away." Like, we're talking about a cute dog in a little hat and like a little fox wearing sunglasses, and it's so dramatic.
You're right.
It's so serious. It is so like just like the gravitas of like these like seemingly like if you just did like a different like if you put some like cute music behind this could be a completely different episode.
Yeah.
But they just made it like so absolutely serious.
This is probably a good point. Since you mentioned like the drama of these anthropomorphic characters, to bring out the BoJack Horseman in the room, that probably pissed him off, when that show came out, 2016-ish. So when was the first Fox in Space that came out?
About around the same time.
So assuming he was definitely working on it before anybody knew what BoJack Horseman was.
Sure.
And this balance of comedy and drama. And now everybody thinks BoJack Horseman's like the greatest thing in the world. You gave a thumbs down. Have you not seen it, or you just don't like it that much?
Didn't care for it.
I remember enjoying it as I watched it, and then like immediately was like, this ages like shit. And the difference is like it's drama and tension in a real human way, and BoJack's drama was always reaching for what I call clapter, where like just a show across the board. Like the jokes aren't that funny. Some of them are, but like it's more serious about its drama, and like the drama is this melodrama of like your trauma, your drug problems, fixing yourself. Yeah, and this is just like two human characters who have a history together, like specifically this scene with Peppy and James. And it's just like, this is how two guys with this relationship of being like war buddies or whatever, who are mercenaries now, would talk. They're not trying to solve each other's trauma, right. Like they're just, this is how they are.
And there's also like this like machoism between the two of them, where it's like Peppy asks James a pretty basic question, And he's like, well, I don't want to ask, I don't want to get too personal or anything.
Yeah.
And it's just like, guys are like that, especially when they're putting on like airs as to being tough guys. Like, like Josh and I are not tough guys. Like, sure. Like, I can punch through a brick wall. No big deal. But like, I'm a very sensitive person.
Right.
And we don't put on these types of macho airs that these guys are doing, but it seems to be sincere. And it's not like they're putting on an act. It's just that they're like, they have to embrace every ounce of testosterone that they have to survive these crazy times that they're in.
Yeah. It feels very real to the world. And even the detail of like Pepe calls him Jim. It's like, Jim. That's all he has to say is the way he goes, like, well, now Jim is like, oh, these guys have a very personal relationship and there's a lot of history to it because Pepe, from what we know from both the games and I think the previous episode, if I remember, is a much more like paternal figure to the team.
Oh, absolutely.
And this is very informal in a way. It's like we are equals, we are peers. With history.
Mean, he and being in Star Fox with young Fox and Slippy and Falco, Pepe is. I mean, he's the elder of the team, and in the games he's always like, you're becoming just like your father.
Yeah.
And like he really like drives home the point. He's like, I am your link, Fox, to your father. Like, so Pepe and James, they've got this great, it's a wonderful, just emotional, character driven scene, which also has some great like foreboding into what they're getting into.
Yeah. And what do you make of James says we won't know what this one is until we're in the thick of it, when they're both like, yeah, it's foreboding, but like, I don't know. He says it in a way that's like, he knows more than he's leading on.
Yeah. I think, so he gives Pepe a chance. He's like, you don't have to go if you don't want to, he's kind of like, this might like, as without threatening your masculinity, I'm giving you an option to not join me on what I think James sees as potentially a suicide mission.
Yeah.
Pepe, of course, is just like, he's the cool cucumber. He's loyal. He's like, Pepe is there's just, I don't know. There's so much gravity to these characters, and it's so funny. Like at the end of the day, I still see this as a comedy because there's
some very hilarious stuff.
It's based on a Nintendo game where they're just like, like it's wonderful. I feel like there's like an underlying just like joke to all of this. It's like, look what I was like. It's almost like,
look at how serious I can take this stupid fucking game.
Exactly. Look at how serious I can take it, and look how effectively it can translate into this different tone. Pepe and James, they arrive at Space Dynamics R&D. And it's shady. The lights are off. The door's being held open with a rock.
And one of them's just like, is the door supposed to be propped open with a rock?
Yeah. And then with these modern cuts, we go right into a commercial for a bathroom cleaner called Nova Bomb.
Yeah.
And they get some fun references to voice acting lines from Star Fox 64. One of the bosses that you defeat. At the end, he's like, I can't believe I lost to this scum.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's a guy who didn't use the right, like Mr. Clean spray bathroom cleaner. And he's losing to literal, like, the sentient bathroom scum. It's good stuff.
Yeah, really, really good. And that it's like, it's full frame. It's trying to sell it as this is what's really happening. And then we pan out to this very old school looking, what's the type of TV I'm thinking of?
A CRT.
CRT. All I could think of was the actual name, like cathode ray, whatever. Yeah. I couldn't think of the acronym.
But yeah, those wonderful analog dials where it's like, if you want to go to channel 3, you got to like push in a dial, like.
Yeah.
It's like a rotary phone.
And this is where I was like fully in. There's a Joy Division poster in the background.
Yeah.
Where they rename it Ian Curtis something, probably like Courtesy.
Ian Courtesy.
Yeah, incredible.
Yeah, and there's all these posters,
and I don't even know like whose room this is yet.
This
but
is
I'm
Fox, or this is Wolf's room,
right? But like in the viewing, I don't know.
as it reveals.
Yeah. So like I'm immediately trying to decipher all the posters.
Right.
There's
We got
clearly an
Eraserhead poster.
Is the one that I immediately recognize. The others are like, okay, this is definitely from something, but not something I immediately recognize.
It reminds
Lots
me
good
of my
parody.
bedroom from high school. Like I just like covered my walls with band and movie posters, and that was what I just like. I was like, oh, is this interior decorating? Like I just covered my window with a bunch of towels because I can't afford curtains.
Right. And then like immediately cut to Teen Wolf. Teen Star Wolf.
Oh my god, Teen Wolf.
Teen Don't Call Me Star Wolf.
Yes. So we've got Wolf, Wolf and Farah. Farah is that a lynx? She's like a long-eared dog.
Well, so is she the daughter of the dog dignitary, or
she's the daughter of
what do they call him?
Of the shoe-in to for the next election in Corneria's premiere. I forget his name. We see one like billboard with his name on it, but otherwise we don't really.
Is he not the dog guy who comes
not
up
the
later?
dog guy who's on the phone later.
Oh, okay.
I thought that too, but that's not the case. We'll get to that guy later. But so Wolfgang, his full name is Wolfgang Seamus, and that's Star Wolf. He's got an eye patch. He's like a teenager. He's like dressed kind of like a greaser. He's got the Fonzie look going with him. And his girlfriend Farah. She's like a long-eared dog, maybe cat. I don't know. I'm not a expert.
It's lynx-ish.
Yeah, a lynx perhaps. So they're having a conversation. Farah wants to introduce Wolf to her dad. Her dad is a prominent politician in Corneria, and Wolf is basically like he's like it's a bad idea. Like I don't want to meet your dad, and I was
like, I'm not daughter of the president's boyfriend material.
Yeah, exactly.
He says some version of a line like that.
And that's pretty. I mean, I've had relationships where it's like, I don't think your dad likes me. I don't think your dad's gonna like me, and like maybe let's just. But it's obvious that like this is Farah trying to bring their relationship to the next level, and Wolf. I mean, he's just not on board, and it's as the scene introduces it, you're like, oh, this is just classic teenage stuff.
Yeah.
But as the episode goes on, you're like, oh, okay, I get it.
He was thinking a few steps further ahead.
Yes, he was. And Wolf, he says to Farah, he's like, your dad's probably going to introduce you to some dandy cadet. And because she's going off to flight academy, Wolf he seems to be a dropout. Or as we learn it later, he's been ejected from flight academy.
Yeah. I don't know if it's for losing his eye or what. But
that has to disqualify you from being a pilot. Like, remember in whatever. You can't be a pilot for like the U.S. Air Force if you're like colorblind.
Yes. And the obvious reason will come up in probably the best joke in the episode.
Yes, absolutely.
In a little bit.
Absolutely. So Wolf is like, come on, just put your, get your hoodie on. Like, let's go out. I want to take you somewhere. And, but Farah, once Wolf says that he's like, oh, your dad's just going to introduce you to some dandy cadet. She's like, oh, that's the name of my first ship now.
Yeah.
Like, great. It's just like, man, I wish I was a pilot sometimes. So I'd be like, that's my ship's name. Like, it's like,
she'd have a ship you could call Girl.
I know. I can't like name my car, right? Like that's
lame.
I've grown out of that.
Yeah, a ship is earned. A car, you just go to a dealership, give a guy enough money. Come on, you don't get to name that.
Okay, now we're getting into what I love more than anything as a media consumer. It's when a show creates its own video game and you get to see that video game play on the screen.
Yeah.
This is a holdover from being a kid in the 80s and 90s where video games weren't just everywhere and they weren't always at your fingertips. Like back in the day, like if you couldn't as a cartridge-based gamer, like who had faulty equipment sometimes, like blowing in the cartridge as that like such a ubiquitous ritual now for retro gamers. But like you do that because if you can't get your game to start, like then you can't play it. And when a movie has video game footage in it, just like embedded, you're like, okay, I can always at least put this VHS on and watch a little bit of game footage. It's a weird holdover that nobody born after 1990 is going to really appreciate.
And it was used for marketing too, in certain ways. The biggest one being Mario Brothers 3 and the Wizard before it came out in the US. I remember watching that movie a ton and having no idea what it's about. I'm like, I just want to get to that part where they play Mario 3.
Yes.
And it like shows you where the first whistle is.
That's right.
And it's fun. But in this case, more specifically, it's like the level of world building that is being done here is like you made a world based on this game world that fleshed it out a million times more in depth than the game itself. Now you're making a new world within that world in a video game that like even just like the opening we see the opening like press start screen.
Yes.
And
so good.
This
might be a real game actually. I haven't looked too far into it, but I think the violence, that's the game that they're playing in this show. It's called The Violence. They might have actually designed this game to be a playable indie game.
It looks really good.
So we cut, there's so many great cuts where it's like a new scene starts with the media that's being played in the room, and then you pan out. And in this case, we're in the Wolf family, the Seamus family den. It looks like a top
looks like the
loader.
Aqua Teen's house.
It really does. Yeah, the wood paneling on the walls. It's the game is on this great another CRT TV, and it looks kind of like Contra, Mega Man kind of. I mean, it's a platform shooter. Or you could even say that it might be like what is it? Do you ever play Journey to Silius?
No.
Oh, it's great. It was supposed to be a Terminator adaptation for the Nintendo, but it then lost the licensing rights. And so then they changed the title and a couple of assets to Journey to Silius.
Nice.
And it's actually a really fun, like kind of run and gun type of game that still has like blatantly like Terminators in it. Fun thing. On the wall next to the TV that Fox and Wolf's dad are watching, you see a family portrait of the Wolf family. You see Wolf Daddy, Wolf Mommy. You see Wolf because he's got this very stylized like pompadour like hairstyle, and then you see another sibling, like presumably like Wolf's younger brother.
Yeah,
who
a
is
younger
completely
brother or
active.
sister or something.
Yeah, Wolf's mother gets mentioned in the episode. She's alive, but no mention of the little brother. And I've still got my speculation trousers on right now. I don't know if there's two options that I think that this is showing, because Wolf seems to resent having Fox stay at his family's house. We'll get into this, but just talking about the Wolf family unit, I think that his younger brother might be dead. And that's why Wolf's father has such a fondness for Fox, because he's about the same age. If you look at the age difference in the photo of Wolf and his brother.
Well, let's just explain a little bit of what's happening.
Yes, thank you.
Before we go deeper into this, because I have thoughts on that. Is that we hear while the game screen's still on, Fox's first line, this like pathetic, "Am I staying over?"
Yeah.
And then you see it's Fox and Wolf's dad on the couch together.
That's right.
Wolf's dad is just sort of like resigned to watching him play video games. I got the vibe that the relationship here is like Wolf's dad, I forget what his name is, the patriarch of the Seamus family, has some personal relation, connection, debt to like James.
Yeah.
And that's like, they're all just sort of like, we just baby Fox, or we babysit Fox McCloud when his dad is gone on this weird stuff his dad does. It's just, don't ask. That's why we do it, for reasons that are in the past.
When my parents were getting divorced, I just kind of became like an adopted kid of one of my friends' families.
Yeah.
And like they were just like, oh yeah, we just like got the guest room, like Sean can stay anytime, like school nights, whatever. It was just like a safe place. And some families are just naturally that welcoming. But it does seem that like,
but this doesn't seem
Wolf's
they
father,
really would want to.
Wolf's father, I'm gonna put forward the idea that I think Wolf's father does truly care about Fox. He pities him, and he is seemingly indebted to James McLeod. I would assume that they're Air Force buddies too. This because James, he's being reinstated into the what they shorten it to the CAF, the Corneria Air Force. And Wolfgang is, he's a ex student at the CAF Academy. Fox gets accepted into the CAF Academy. I think it's just like, as we also go later into it, we learn that Fox's mother is dead, and there's some this is a community, like they're all veterans technically, and they have these like connections that are like that last beyond just the front lines.
Yeah, one more great detail to that note I want to add about Wolf's dad is that in the family photo, he has what we in our world understand as like the leather jacket of
like a biker gang
member who's probably a Vietnam vet.
Yeah.
Who's like, just keep Uncle Sam off my back after what he did to me, sending me to Nam kind of guy. Sure. Like, so that's where I'm like, where I feel like there's like, I'm going to fucking speculate about the politics of the world a little bit. Like, that there's some kind of tension between James McLeod, loyal, like veteran champion of the status quo, and like Wolf's family is like, his dad was maybe like felt more betrayed by like whatever wars they've been in or whatever by their home, and is maybe like a little more radical. Like, and that's maybe where some of the friction is.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I always saw this scene as Wolf's Papa Wolf being very much like, I see him being sympathetic and loving toward Fox. I didn't really pick up on any hostility toward them. I think he's just like, he's a beleaguered father. Like he you
gotta remind me, since I mentioned it's like the Aqua Teen house, they've kind of got a Carl and Meatwad vibe together.
Fox, he's played the violence. Wolf's dad is just sitting there drinking beer, watching. He seems like, he's like, whatever. It's like watching a sports game you don't care about.
Yeah.
So Wolf and Farah, they like try to like sneak out basically, and Wolf's like, like, hold up, like, where are you going? And it's just like, this is like some of the most human shit going on in the episode, where it's just like, you see Wolf, like before he and Farah try to like sneak out, they're just like having kind of a tender moment. Then Wolf kind of like breaks the tension by like making a joke and grabbing her boob.
Yeah,
and
it's just like almost too human to the point that I was like, what's happening?
Yeah, I was like, am I supposed to like almost like relate to this? Like, I don't know.
Where it's like, overall, it's just like, this is kind of how the humor plays out in the show. But I'm like, this is so like real. Like this, like, this like when you're in isolation with a significant other, like the way like, like the streams like come in and out of each other of like serious moments and like goofy flirtation.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of my favorite scenes in the episode coming up, where we've got Wolf, Farah, Fox, and Wolf's dad. They're all in the TV room, and the room is being lit by the TV. There's so much attention to detail has gone into this. It's really impressive. This looks like something you would hope to see like on Adult Swim.
It's better than a lot of Adult Swim stuff, and so much of it is the work in using sort of like 3D space dynamic lighting, doing so much work that would take so much time in hand animation.
Absolutely. And you know, I on just the aesthetics, I think this is going to age well. Like I don't see this like being like too trendy or like too like of its time. I see this being like, this is like you know, the character designs, they are classic Disney to some degree. Like they look like they could be like in any animated talking animal type of movie, but like the world around them, it's a period piece as it is.
And the use of 3D when we do have it stays like it's honest to both the world and like the skill level in a way that's like, he's not like, oh yeah, if we're in a 3D rendered space, I'm gonna go all just as Pixar as I can with the best quality we can do. It's just like, no, I re-rendered the very basic 16-bit like machines that existed in the original game.
I call those architectural cameos.
Yeah. Anyway, that was also still getting ahead.
So basically, Wolf, he's like, where are you going? And I'm sorry, Wolf's dad, he asks where they're going. Wolf tells him that they're going to the army base. And the dad is just like, with her makeup like that, like, try again.
Yep.
Like, it's just, you know, get caught in a lie, but he doesn't care. Wolf's dad is at that point where he's just like, do you have any money?
Yeah.
There's like,
it's very Carl Bertonalonopoulos-y.
Yeah, for sure.
If he had a family.
Wolf tells his dad that he got his hair did.
Yeah.
With the money that he gave him.
Is this part you're saying was one of your favorites?
Yes, absolutely.
This debate about the haircut versus styling.
What is a haircut versus what is a hairstyle? Like, I think I paid that fairy $20 to run his fingers through your hair. It's just like, oh, okay, Dad. Like,
which is another joke that like people would not do. In I'm going to compare it to BoJack Horseman.
Sure. As
they're like, we don't say that word.
Oh,
and, you know,
like
that in the writer's room level, they'd be like, that we can't have a character like that because we wouldn't say that word. Mm-hmm. And this is like, no, this is a real guy. Yes. You know this guy.
Yes.
And they're not glorifying him, saying somebody who styles hair is gay and that's bad. It's just like, that's a guy.
That's his worldview.
And that's his worldview. Yeah. And you're not supposed to go, yes, like that's hilarious. That's not where the humor is.
No.
It's the actual argument they're happening is what the humor's derived from, not the like sort of somewhat homophobic slur or whatever. So it's like it all works.
Yes.
Goes part to like why it could age well, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Because this is it's genuine. It's authentic, and basically, you know, Dad gives Wolf another $20 or whatever, and he's like, all right, well, you know, bring Fox along with you. Yeah. I love it. He's like, he says to Fox, he's like, you mind playing chaperone for me? I want to catch up on my stories. Yeah, it's like, what are his stories? I hope he's watching Days of Our Lives or like, you know, a telenovela or something like that.
I also love, like, this is mixing so many generational dynamics in like the types of characters and social interactions they have. Like how you mentioned, like Fox's decor is this combination of like our young teen selves is like punks and like a 50s greaser.
Yeah.
The game is like early 90s style. Fox's like tuned in obsession with them is a more modern like Gen Z. I have ADHD because I've been on screens my whole life kind of. It's like social pattern. And like I said, the dad is like got this Vietnam War vet thing. It's like all of these different generational dynamics that like don't really exist in the real world because of how the gap between them
for sure
all come together and like work really well.
Yes. And
just because the world's built so well.
I have to mention that in the game that Fox is playing, the violence on and this is obviously like, you know, Wolf's system. Mm-hmm. You know, he's at Wolf's house playing his Nintendo with his dad in the TV room, and Wolf is like, is he on level 9? Like, but this is leading toward the idea that Fox is naturally talented. He's got a gift for you know, hand-eye coordination. He's a perfect pilot. He doesn't know it, but because I think Fox tends to lead what I would assume is a pretty solitary life, being the son of James McLeod. He's an only child with no mother, and he is like, when he's playing video games, he's disassociating completely. He is like, that is his escape from the drudgery of his day to day. And
that's like the modern Gen Z aspect of it that I'm talking about. It's just like this, I'm laser focused. The rest of the world doesn't exist because I'm on my screen.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And that keeps up throughout this episode. I don't know if we see Fox not playing video games in this episode.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know, Wolf's dad, he's like, you're going to bring Fox with you because I'm in charge. And if you don't like it, you can go live with your crazy woman mother. And so we cut back to Beltino Toad over at Space Dynamics R&D. And it's so great. So Sonny and Sagan, they're the hedgehog and the bandicoot.
I didn't realize that was their names. That's hilarious.
I only knew that because I was watching with captions on, and they give those at some points. And so they bring Rob 64. He like regains consciousness, and this is great stuff. Like where it's like the thugs to Rob, they're like, oh, we were just talking to your friend Beltino here about the R-Wing. And Rob is like, did you tell them about the G diffuser? And they're like, no, Rob, you just did.
Yeah.
It's just
Which
like,
is
oh,
like,
fuck.
it's like, oh, I've seen that joke before, but in the context of it's a robot waking up.
Yes.
It's like the robot definitely should have logic systems that would never divulge such things. So it's like this really quick throwaway, like you've seen it before joke, but it like humanizes the robot.
Yes. It's so good. Okay, now so we've still got Beltino. He's tied to the chair. Rob, he's tied to the table, and then the bad guys, they're just like kind of menacing over them, and like out of the corner, you just see a marble like fly and hit the bandicoot, or no, the hedgehog, right in the forehead, and it's just like his agony is real.
Right.
The voice acting of being being concussed is so genuine. It's like I can't even replicate it. It's so good. But this is where I first noticed that James is missing a hand.
Yeah.
Because in previous scenes with him, it's not really front and center. But in this case, he's got a nub on his left hand, and then two little prongs poking out that makes a slingshot, and he's got it drawn all the way back, and you can see him like struggling with the tension of the band as he's holding it, and you just like, you never want to get shot by a slingshot. Like it hurts so bad.
And this scene, it takes a minute to sort of settle into, because it's establishing new things in the world that are not part of canon Star Fox. Like, Fox's dad is missing a hand, and instead of using a gun, he's really into using a slingshot.
Yeah.
The more time you spend with it, the more you're like, it works. But the first time through, I was like, what's going on? He's slingshot? What?
Yeah,
why?
I know. When did Bart Simpson get in this episode?
And it also like adds to the like, it's like a synthesized drama and humor of James's role in the scene, where he is so motherfucking confident with this thing that like you learn that about his character, but it's silly. That's like, but it's a slingshot, right? Yeah. Whereas like if it was with a gun, you'd be like, okay, I know this scene. Yeah.
For sure. If anything, it makes James that much more impressive, right? Like a slingshot is always viewed as like a kid's like toy. It's not something that can like do serious harm. It's just always been kind of like, it's for pranks. It's for like for fooling around. But like no. Like that'll put your eye out. Like a slingshot in the right hands is as deadly as like a low caliber handgun.
Yeah.
And it makes sense in the world building for James, because he's kind of like a secret agent. And it's like, instead of carrying like a Walther PPK like James Bond would, like, it's like, no, he's just got this little, and like, I assume he presses like a little button on his hand, and it's like these little prongs like, bing, and like just like shoots up, and it's just like it works for me. And he's got a great line. He says, as he's like, as Sonny's the bandicoot, and he's got his knife up on Beltino's throat. Like he's like, okay, like you got your slingshot, but I got a knife on your guy's throat. Like, what's gonna happen now? And James is like, oh, whatever happens, it's going to be your fault. Like, this is some cop shit. Like, this is a cop talking down.
Yeah, the most confident ass TV cop you've ever seen.
Like, I'm getting goosebumps, and this is a cartoon. Like, it's so good. So after seeing how actually hurt his partner is, the bandicoot like puts his knife up and gets his friend, and they leave. Peppy, he's like guarding the door with like a pipe in his hand. I love that they don't have guns.
Yeah,
like it's just they weren't expecting this to be a problem. They thought they were just going to go get their new rides. So the bad guys, they escape S&D. Well, like they're allowed to escape basically without any real problems. Like they're like, okay, we're at a standoff, but like I will shoot you in the head with a slingshot, and you'll be just as bad off as your buddy right there. And so the two thugs leave, and you hear like a scooter like as they drive off, and Peppy's like, did they really come here on a scooter?
Yeah.
And
which is
we'll get to
for
why
a moment
that
makes no
rules.
sense, and we'll just hang on for a minute.
This is so good. So then I feel like Beltino is like, he's like, speaking of like James Bond, like he's their cue. He's like, all right, James, I'm going to set you up with the newest equipment. He gets them their R-wings, and he says that they're basically upgraded asteroid cutters, which is what the ships they were flying before are called. So I've never seen an asteroid cutter, but just knowing that an R-wing seems to be an updated one, I was like, I can assume I know what an asteroid cutter looks like. Probably just less militarized.
We'll see what.
Oh, right.
I don't know if it's canonically established, but
the other
Phil, who we're going to meet in a minute,
Yeah.
in Star Fox 64, flies a different ship.
That's right.
That you get a sense like, oh, he's on an older ship.
Yeah. And so some fun little details that I really appreciated. Beltino, he's like giving Fox and Peppy the rundown on the new features that the R-wing offers, and he tells them that there are gimbaled cannons. And Peppy's like, what's that mean? Like, and it's like he's talking like they're talking about settings that you could turn on and off in future Star Fox games.
Yeah, I was wondering about this one, the gimbaled cannon thing.
Yeah.
I do you know what it's from?
Yeah, I'm talking about it right now. The gimbaled cannons are like, I think it's in Star Fox Zero, where basically you can just control the aimer without controlling the trajectory of your ship. And Peppy is just like, I don't want that. And he's like, press, ZL or whatever to change to fixed. Fixed is what we're used to. That is how we play Star Fox. We play with fixed cannons, where it's like you're always going in the direction that you're shooting.
Yeah. It was like, I was like, this is probably a reference to a game after I dropped out of the series.
Exactly. And like, from my end, I've played Star Fox Assault. I played a little bit of Star Fox on the 3DS, which is basically just a remake of 64. And it all blends together at this point. Who cares, man? It's all good, I guess. So Fox and Peppy, they've got a long trip to Venom. They got 4 hours in those little cockpits. Great detail I love. You see Peppy, as soon as they're like, all right, like strap in, Peppy puts in a little tobacco pouch in his mouth. And like, cause like we see, he's like constantly smoking in this episode too. It's like so noir and dramatic. Everyone's just like a, smoky detective. But Beltino kind of like gives them the layout. He's talking to them through their, transmission comm, and, basically yes, they've technically been reinstated into the Cornerian Air Force, but this is a secret mission that nobody is going to claim to have any knowledge of. It's a mission impossible. Like they're like, this. They might as well just be like, yeah, and this is going to self-destruct in 5 seconds. But they hear a voicemail that was left for General Pepper from a character called Koba. I think, what's his full name? I think it's Dessler Koba. Dessler Koba. And he's another, like, I think he's a lynx too, or he's, I don't know, all these little...
There's like lemurs and lynxes and all kinds. Yeah, we're going to meet some lemurs soon.
I think that's what... that's what the bad dudes that we meet later are. Yeah. But Koba, he basically is just like, I've got the secret documents, like... meet me on the train. It's the only train on Venom that's not under surveillance. So like Venom is a surveillance state. Like there's it's complete, like, fascist overreach of, it's obviously not a chill place.
Yeah.
And you see James's face as he's listening to this voicemail. And as soon as he hears that, like, I found what you want. There's a recognition in James's face, and he's like, "Fuck!" Like now he knows what he's getting himself into. Do we, as the audience, at this point know? No.
Yeah, I've no clue why they're going to Venom. Other than that, if I played Star Fox 64, this story has been told to me in like a sentence.
Exactly. Exactly. And on his dashboard, you see a photo of James and his wife, who we later learn is named Vixie. And it's then like, do you know what a G diffuser does? Is it like light speed?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I probably should have. Maybe we should have played 64 before this. That's where it's introduced.
Yeah.
I want to say like they talk about it as like the thing that makes it so R-Wings can like boost and brake so like aggressively and nimbly. I don't know.
We'll definitely have an answer for next episode.
Canonically establish it. I read it as like, it's like a gravity diffuser. Makes so you can be like, and go like fast forward, backward, really sudden.
So stupid.
Suddenly drop in and out of.
Thought what G stood for.
I don't know.
I was like G diffuser. I was like, I don't know, G.
Yeah.
What's G? I don't care.
But that's something. Yeah, they talk about that with the R-Wings in this show or this episode a lot. It's like that's the big thing on the R-Wing.
Yeah, that seems to be the secret weapon for them. And so then begin their flights are charged up, and then they're locked in for their route, and I assume it's autopilot. And Beltino right before he sends them off, he says good luck.
Yeah.
Every time you play Star Fox, someone's gonna tell you good luck. We go to Venom. We're on Venom, and this is such a good shot. This shit looks straight out of Blade Runner.
Yeah. Very Blade Runner-esque shot.
It's a reflection of Andross's face in the window, looking out at this like dystopian corporate like hellhole. He gets word from a, I think that's Hyena, who's got like Geordie LaForge goggles on. That James and Peppy have been spotted en route to Venom. And this is okay. So Andros, before we get into the talk about these like criminal arrangements that he seems to have, like hearing that James is on his way to Venom, Andros is like, okay, it's like in his mind it seems he's checking off of like, okay, begin phase 2. Like this is it's now it's we can't turn back now. Like things are going to go as I've anticipated, and I have I don't know. It's like the calm before the storm is just about to start.
Yeah, he's got this dossier on the two of them already ready to go.
He looks over this dossier, and we learn 2 wonderful things. First, James Foxworth McLeod is his full name. Second, Peppy is short for Pepperidge. Pepperidge Hair. No middle name.
That's good.
Canonical, can't say for certain, but it is for me.
Yeah.
Like, good enough, man. So Andros has a back and forth with this Hyena.
Yeah. This is another moment I was like, this is a bizarre, intricate piece of world building that I have my interpretation of. That I don't know. I'm gonna see what you think.
Well, I see this as okay. So Andros right now, as this episode stands, he is he's the front runner in an election or selection for the premiere of Venom. So right now, he seems to be the most powerful man in Venom, but he still is not officially the most powerful man in Venom. And this is him right on the cusp of his rise to power. So we see the inner workings of how a man who started off as an exile on this planet, started from and like built bootstraps, all that dumb shit. Like he rose to superiority. Like I mean, he's a mob boss. He's a mad scientist. He's a dictator. Like he gets a report from the hyena, and he's like, "Oh, is your wife enjoying the new apartment I set you up with? It's the biggest one we've got. It must be nice. Let me know if you need anything else, but just keep your nose clean, do a good job, and there's more to come where that came from." Like it's just like that's a mob spit. Like that's just like our arrangement is still satisfactory to both parties. Like
yeah. Does he say something else he provided the guy besides the apartment thing? Am I forgetting?
No. He's basically just like the unit that you have it's the most spacious that in the thing, and like let me know if you need anything else. Kind of thing.
I don't know why. I got the impression at some point that that Andros like cyborgifies some of these people. So which is like a very sort of like cyberpunk.
That's a good
element.
That's a good call. And that is hinted at, especially with like you see like early in the episode, like a little flash of Andros conducting experiments, and like I mentioned very early, like you see a primate on the table with a circular saw right at about head level. And this hyena's got like techno goggles on, so it's a good bet that he has done some mind control type of like tech.
I don't know, something between this scene and maybe somewhere else, maybe when we see that guy again, something gave me the impression it's like one of Andros's ways to rise to power was somehow like kidding militarized cyborg implants.
Absolutely.
For people in this. Yeah. There's something going on there.
For sure. Andros he's not above like tactics that are not ethical. I mean, he's just like any way to gain power, he will do it.
Yeah.
And he in the first episode we were talking, it was like maybe Andros has some points if you look at it from a utilitarian perspective, and we'll get to what exactly those points might actually be. But in this case, like he's like any means to the outcome he wants is not off the table. And I think also like by like he's like because Andros brings this up, so the hyena delivers the information. He's like, "Oh, how's the wife?" It's a veiled threat. It's like if you don't like he's like, I know what I offer you, and like it's. I mean, come on, man. You wrote a whole huge essay on The Sopranos. You know about like secret speak and like the idea of like not saying at all what you mean, but like implying it through your actions. And I just see it as like this is Andros being like loyalty to me.
Just keep it going. Everything's going to stay fine.
Yeah.
And then if you stop, then maybe it won't. Yeah.
And then we go to Act 2. I love that these are broken up into acts as well. So this is it starts with Sonny and Sagan. They're at a phone booth and they're calling presumably verifiably the guy who hired them to break into space dynamics research.
Right. Yeah, they're complaining like, "Oh, you didn't tell us there'd be some guy with a slingshot or whatever."
Yeah. Okay, his name is Captain Shears, and he, as we'll learn later, he's on Venom right now.
Okay.
And he's wrapped up in what we'll later discuss. It's a movement on Venom that is not a part of Andross's plan. But,
okay. I kind of missed some of the details around him because he's like the one sort of big figure here that I'm like, I don't know you from the game.
Exactly. Yeah. This is, presumably he is included in probably one of the many side titles.
One of the things that
series.
isn't the first two games.
Exactly. But Captain Cheers, he's like, what kind of dog do you think he is? Like he's got like the big
like
ears.
a doodle something
like a
labradoodle.
like a labradoodle or
yeah, that's why I thought like the girl could have been his daughter.
No,
like,
but she had those
similar
big pointy ears that
features.
stood up.
You're right.
But yeah, so Captain Shears basically he hired the thugs to go break into learn about the G diffuser and the R wing, but they didn't get any like documents or files or anything to share. And he's like, the guys, they're like, "Are we still getting paid?" And he's like, "For what?" And they're like,
So good.
"Fuck." Yeah, it's some wonderful acting in this stuff. Like just the like. Just between the two thugs, like they're just like, so we still getting paid? We're still getting paid.
Yeah,
like
the callback to the gibber or the like whiny speak, which was pulled from that promo video.
It's so good.
Nice.
It's consistent and it's believable. Like, it's not. It doesn't feel like they're tacking stuff on. It feels like that these are characters expressing themselves how they would typically do so.
Yeah. And then in the meantime,
oh boy,
who do we see but the Lombardi family?
Yes, I thought you might like this. I thought you might like this.
So good.
Speaking of the Sopranos,
I was like cheering.
Yes.
I was like, of course, Falco's dad.
So
is Tony and Carmela Soprano.
Yes, we got the Lombardi family. The Lombardis, they're at an Italian restaurant. It's a classy joint. There's photos on the wall.
He's got chains. They both have chains. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So Falco and his mother, they seem to be dressed in like sports athleisure wear. Like they both have headbands on. Falco, he's like, he's probably like 10, 11 years old, maybe 14. He seems to be a little like a teenager. But basically he sees Sonny and Sagan. He's like, those are the Baganoushas that stole my scooter. Oh my gosh. I had to look up the spelling. He calls them Bacanouche. Bacanuge. I don't know what that means, but it's just like I was like, Maron.
Yeah, it's very good. And his parents are just like not really having it. His dad's very Tony Soprano, and even like down to the shirt. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah. But like
tells him to shut up and eat your fucking fazool.
Yes, but the just through what they're talking about. He's like, if you got no proof, you got nothing. And it's just like, that is some mob talk. Like, he's like, well, I think his mom is like, after Falco's like, those are the Baganoushas that stole my scooter. She's like, that's a pretty serious accusation there, Falco. Do you have any proof? And they're like, their main concern, they're like, you don't want to start any shit because you don't want your father to get in trouble again. So it's like, so we're like, they're not saying your father who is in the mafia and said none of these things. Like there's just like, it's this little like, it's just there.
Everything you need is there.
Everything you need. Yeah. It's like,
I mean, it's like honestly at this point, like this is where I'm putting it in. Like even though it's the source material is so absurd. We're hitting like Sopranos Mad Men level quality.
Yes. In terms of production, in terms of scripting, performances, like cinematography.
Yeah.
It's so wild that we're talking about a cartoon based on a Super Nintendo game.
Yeah. It's like there's never been a point, so just as you mentioned cinematography, that like the framing of the shot, the position of the camera is not very purposeful.
Yes.
Which is very easy to do in a project like this. Of like, let's just throw some talking heads on the screen.
Yeah, of course. This could have been done so lazily.
Yeah.
And still gotten pretty good, like, reception. But instead, we are treated to some like auteur style, like filmmaking.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just it's great to see Falco like a little like just a little antipasti of Falco's childhood, so the thugs they realize they're not going to get paid, and so Captain Shears is just like we know that he's like he's wearing like military uniforms, and so it seems like he's kind of doing exactly what General Pepper is doing. He's like, I'm going to hire some mercenaries to do some shit for me off the clock, quote unquote. And it's showing, I think, in terms of like the political military like intrigue that this is like introducing, that there is no good guy in any of these. Like General Pepper is doing the exact same stuff that Captain Shears is doing, except he's just hired better people.
Yeah.
Like, and Andros, he's got his own, underlings. Everybody is working, and they get into this even further later where they start talking about these documents that James is after. But no heroes in A Fox in Space, really. Just people caught up in a web of deceit and intrigue. And after we, just that little taste of the Lombardi family, you're just like, okay, like that explains Falco now, right?
Yeah.
Like it like
yeah.
it explains the
Falco is a
Falco.
Guido. He's a North Jersey Guido.
Yes, and he's not a quarterback, but he's a linebacker. I don't know what I don't football.
Who are you talking about?
Falco. Like if you were to think of him as like a varsity athlete, like on the football team.
I'd say he's got running back energy.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. We then go back to Wolf, Farah, and Fox. Wolf's driving. Farah's in the front seat. Fox is in the back playing what kind of looks like a 2DS, but he's playing Star Fox.
Yeah, exactly. He's playing very much Star Fox.
And I can't wait to get to this later. And
he's, by the way, like playing it like a Tazbot playthrough. Like
he's killing it. Well, he's Star Fox.
Yeah.
Wait, he's Fox McCloud. But so what this scene is doing, Farah, she's like, wait, what are we actually doing? Like, I thought we were just telling your dad a lie. Like, what are we doing? And Wolf's like, no, we're going to the base. I want to go see Bill. It'll be worth it. But it's obvious that like Farah's uncomfortable because Wolf is like straight up using her ID to get onto the base. And Fox is just like dead-eyed playing his game.
Yeah, he's like, as long as I can stare at my screen, I'm fine.
He's like, I'm not even here, guys.
Yeah.
Do whatever. And Fox tells Farah, he's like, oh, Farah, guess what? I passed the CFA entrance exam. I got a 99%, which is like wild. Like, I also want to be like, what's the 1% you mixed, Fox? Like, come on. I thought you were the hero here. But Farah, so that's the Cornerian Air Force, CAF. And so like Fox, I mean, he's young too, right? Like he's way younger than Wolf, presumably, or he's just scrawny.
Yeah.
But it seems
we get the idea. He's sort of preteen and Wolf is late teen.
Yeah. Maybe like Wolf would have been like a senior when Fox was a freshman.
Yeah.
Kind of age gap. But Farah asks him what he's going to do, like in the Air Force. And he's like, I don't know, computer stuff. Like, definitely computers. And Wolf he's like ribbing on Fox. Like throughout, like Wolf has made it no secret that he does not like having Fox around. Like he's just like, who is this third wheel? Like, God, like, geez. But he's like, you trying to cut in on my girl, little man? It's just like, taking the kid down a peg. Yeah,
well, this is like, you get so much more of characterization of Fox, or God damn it, Wolf, through this, as he's like, he uses it as this way to both neg his girlfriend and pick on Fox because he's just like, you like him like old and saggy and like. Right. I like at the end, she's like, I'm not rugged. Yeah, she ends it with this just kind of like too mean kind of thing. Yeah. And it's just like, that's how a dirtbag boyfriend is, It's really well done. That's what I hear, at least. Yeah. So yeah, like they get to like a checkpoint where like Farah has to like show her ID, get scanned, and then they're on the base. And he's like, all right, stay in the car. Like, it'll be worth it. I promise. And at this point, I mean, like so far, it just all seems like pretty
if you don't know where this is going, this seems to be just like a nice, like, okay, like whatever, like he's just, he wants to see his pal before he goes on with the rest of his night. You don't really understand where it's going, but after seeing episode 1, that Wolf is like a manipulative, condescending,
hilarious.
He's the perfect villain.
Yeah.
And he's not acting specifically villainous in this episode. He's acting like a villain's origin story, like where we'll get to it.
Well, in this scene, did you catch this line that he repeats, that I'm your biggest fan?
That's right. That's right. Oh,
like, again, now the relationship is so clear that there's some thread line throughout beyond just these 2 snippets and what we've seen in the game.
Absolutely.
That, like, he says it so knowingly, and we've heard him say it to him in the past episode, which is 10 years later. Like, this is a dig. This is for my Sopranos fans.
Yeah.
This is, you never had the makings of a varsity athlete.
Oh, Uncle Junior. Yeah. Oh man, gave me wolf bumps there. But there's something behind Wolf's eye that he's not. He sees something that they don't see yet, and it's just wonderful to see this like mount and build, and how he's keeps crafting the things to go his way. So Wolf, he leaves Farah and Fox in the parking lot while he goes into a hangar.
After she's gotten them through the
right.
gates.
She like flashes her ID, and like it like does the little like U scan or whatever. They get in. So now this is like, you're like, oh wait, maybe Wolf has ulterior motives here, because it's like, what does he need to do so badly?
Yeah.
But Wolf, he goes into the hangar, and there's
It's also, I think, worth noting how long we get just them driving from the gate to the hangar.
Oh, because like military bases are so massive too.
Yeah, but the fact that like he just, in this almost 40-minute thing, let's like 30 seconds of it be just these two characters in silence.
Yeah.
And that does all of the tension that you just said builds up through no words.
Yeah.
That like there's something else going on here.
The vibe is off.
Yeah.
And this show, I mean, it takes real bravery to shut up in a show and to just like give some room to spend time with the characters in their silence.
Yes.
You think about what they're all thinking of at that point. You're not, because, there's no witty dialogue at that point. There's no soundtrack that's really overwhelming. It's just kind of an ambient, like, it could be a great loop for one of those, like,
those
chill, lo-fi hip hop chill.
I was also going to add, it's almost like the tension of riding an elevator with somebody you're mad at.
Ooh, nice. So inside the hangar, Wolf is like he's like approaching. He hears a couple of like cadets that are looking for a missing piece. It doesn't seem to be that important. It's just like some like back. It's like stormtrooper talk, right? Like they have things to say that have nothing to do with what's going on. But you see Wolf. He's obviously not just going to visit. He's like checking his pulse. He's like hiding. He's psyching himself up for a performance. Like this is an actor before going on stage. And like this is kind of more toward the idea that like Wolf is a sociopath. Like he doesn't have genuine feelings. He just aside from like malice, he just seems to be like, okay, I need to be charming. So hold on, let's get my pulse down. Okay, I'm nice. I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice guy.
And then he like lingers just a little longer, and for some reason decides like this is the right moment to walk in and pretend I literally just walked right up.
Yeah,
it's very odd.
It's
sociopathic.
Yeah, it's just manipulative. He is controlling how he's perceived.
Yeah, the level of manipulation that he goes through is so on display.
The kind of guy who gets his hair did.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, I want to be in control of my aesthetic. I want to be in control of how I'm perceived. It all adds up very nicely. This is so convincing. Massive props. Massive props to the team that did this, especially Gafford, obviously, who voices and does all this stuff. and endless praise. Wolf is just like when he's on, he's got quips, he's got little he's just cool. He knows how to be cool. And he's looking for Bill. Bill appears, and he doth appear. And Bill, let's talk about Bill, the good boy, Canadian dog.
Yeah. So we know Bill from Star Fox 64.
That's
the
right.
old, it's
Bill!
like the old salty dog veteran who comes in and helps you in a couple levels.
That's right.
And in this, I'm trying to think of who you could compare him to. He's got this sort of like aloof pilot, yeah, he's probably good behind the plane, but everywhere else he's just a bit dopey.
He's like Owen Wilson.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
But he's also on enough that they dive right into this little
a fake fight
detente that feels real until they break the tension.
It's performative for the girls they're around.
Yeah.
It seems that they're like, it's like, I mean, I was just saying like how we're like not tough guys at all, but where this is. Like we're guys like, oh, what's up, baby boy? Come here. Like, give me touch my tongue.
Except that like Bill, again, in his dopey aloofness, his line delivery makes you be like, I don't know if he's in on the game.
Yeah.
And, like until like he breaks it himself, because the what does Wolf ask before the line?
Oh yeah. So Wolf. Okay. So Bill, he's like, Wolf, what are you doing here? Like, this is only for like authorized pilots. And Wolf like points to the girls. He's like, what do these otherwise beautiful girls have that I don't? And Bill's like, whoa, how about depth perception, eh?
Yeah.
It's like sick burn.
It's
sick
so
burn
good.
first.
But it's the way it's delivered.
And the girls are like,
it sounds like he's not even trying to be mean. He's just like, it's like
you can't be a pilot. You don't have a second eye.
for lack of a better way to explain it. It's like this sort of like autistic delivery of he doesn't understand why that could be offensive to Wolf.
For sure.
It's so funny.
Oh, speaking of Wolf's eye too, it seems like his losing it is a pretty recent thing. Because the girls are like, oh, your eye, like, is it gonna?
Yeah.
And I think Wolf.
He says something like it left me.
Left without even leaving a note.
Yeah, didn't leave a note. That's great.
But basically, after Wolf and Bill have their fun little standoff, they hug, they're broing out, and Wolf just like kind of like laissez-faire. He's like, oh, I just wanted to take it out for one more time, show off for Farah, and that seems to be pretty commonplace for them. They're like, yeah, sure, go for it. Take our top secret jet there, eh?
Yeah.
And we go out to Farah. Oh my God, wait. No, okay. I'm mixing up names. I was like, because I've got the names Farah and Fox next to each other. I was like, Farah Fox. No, Farrah Fawcett. That's where my brain was going. We got Farrah and Fox. They're sitting on the trunk of Wolf's car out in the parking lot. Fox is just,
still acing his game.
Yeah, his face is lit green from the Game Boy screen. And Farrah, she's like, what are you playing there? And then Fox describes Star Fox as a game. He's like, oh, it's just a game where you fly a ship and shoot at stuff. It's like, yeah, that, we could have really condensed our discussion of the first Star Fox game and just said that.
Yeah, there's a game. You fly around, you shoot stuff. End of the podcast. We talked way too long about that. And Wolf pops up in the ship.
Yeah,
and this
is an asteroid cutter, I assume.
This is the ship Bill flies in Star Fox 64.
Yeah, that's right, because it is a different design from the R wing. It's got the green tip wings, and so yeah, Wolf. He's hovering above the hangar. Farrah and Fox, they're like, oh yep, there he is, and then he just flies away. So fun, like.
This is the funniest part.
Oh, for sure.
But this is best comedic delivery.
Bill runs out. He sees Farrah and Fox.
He's not supposed to fly out that far.
He's coming back, right? Farrah, he's coming back, right? He is coming back, right?
Yeah.
He shouldn't have gone that far out. And it holds on Farrah's face as the realization dawns on her. You see her go from like disappointed to aggravated to angry. And this is a furry that's really like telegraphing genuine emotion.
Which again, had been in development, at least, if not the first episode released, before BoJack Horseman, when everybody's like, oh my God, it's a cartoon, but it's about trauma. So props there. And again, it's just so much more real and less like saccharine and melodramatic.
Absolutely.
And like BoJack is just like, you're a good person for watching this.
No,
and this
that.
show is just like, we just want to tell a story that feels really alive.
There's no characters that are larger than life that are like, hyperbolic or anything. This is all just real people, like in this larger than life scenario. And so, like, to summarize, like, Wolf goes into the hangar after taking advantage of Farah's identification, and then he just steals a ship and leaves. So this is...
Which is, both, like, so sad because we see her, but everything we've seen about him up to this point in episode 1 and 2 is, like, that's fucking hilarious, dude.
But now, okay, I want to talk about how, like, there's doublespeak in a lot of Wolf's interactions prior to what he just did here. Like, we see him, he's been planning this. This is like, you don't just steal a jet and then come up with a plan. Like, he knows where he's taking it. He's got his ducks in a line or whatever.
Ducks in a row, yeah.
And so why doesn't he want to meet Farah's dad? Well, first and foremost, because he might just be dating her to get her ID. And secondly, because maybe he also could have stolen some sensitive information from her family that would have been accessible from dating the front runner for the premier's spot. Like, he might have some intel for wherever it is he's going. We learn he's going to Venom. He's going to work for Andros.
Yeah.
But
exactly. Total sociopathy in the way, like, he has from every moment we've seen of him with her was total manipulation.
Yes, absolutely. This is genius writing stuff.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so enamored. I love Wolf as a character, and I love how Gafford like portrayed him. And you think about he presumably also spoke his last words to his father at that point. Like, and it was just him taking his
totally
dad's
in character
money.
for his ruse he's on.
Yeah, it's just it's sad. It paints a sad side to Wolf, but at the same time being like, what a bad guy.
Yeah.
Which in that sense is believable. Bullies tend to have bad family lives. That not to make excuses for what they do to other people, but there's always something that contributes to why they have their particular worldview.
Yeah, and this is probably part of why I was reading so much more into like his dad is like this certain type of like Vietnam vet dad who it's like, oh yeah, he probably hits you when he's drunk, doesn't he?
I wonder. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if like it was more like Wolf would fight his dad.
Yeah,
where it's like it wasn't him being like a helpless critter. It's him like fighting with his dad as a teenager.
Yeah,
which is that stuff it hits close to home for a lot of people, and you're like, okay, like I understand Wolf now. I understand how he feels, and then like I don't think Fox ever saw that side of Mr. Wolf.
Yeah,
right.
And like I mean, just from personal experience, that's not how I grew up, but I worked with kids for years and like kids in living situations, like, broken home. I don't even know their dad, or if dad comes around, like he's drunk kind of thing. And some of them turned out a lot like what we see Wolf doing here, like, I'm not going to go too much further.
No, name names.
Yeah. Like, I know kids who did some like real fucking shit, Yeah. And like, it's so bizarre because they would be like kind of my friend one day. And then it's like, why are you in jail? Like, and then like, you would have to like teach them why what they did was wrong, I'm like, again, real heavy shit I'm not gonna out in public, right? But like, it like the way you're raised could really just like fuck you up so bad.
This will probably be our last chance to talk about Wolf for this episode, so I just want to bring up, how do you think he lost his eye?
I don't know. I didn't really worry about it. I'm just kind of like,
I know, because I know the character design has always had I think, He has an eye patch in the game as well. I can't wait to play Star Fox 64 again. But you see it in 1997 eyeballs. You're like, oh, he's a bad guy. Bad guys have eye patches.
Yeah.
But in this, there's always
there's gonna be a reason if it goes far enough.
A compelling reason too.
Yeah.
It's the same with James. How did he lose his hand? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like probably in the war, whatever that war was, or maybe that's when he lost his Vixie, his wife. Like maybe he lost his hand when she died. Who knows? They don't tell us, and it just thank you for not telling us, because I love not having all the answers.
Yeah. If I had to speculate with Wolf, it'd be like he was a CAF cadet. Yeah. Wasn't taking it super seriously. Showboating, and wanted to. Maybe some of this underworld that we see that still exists here. It's like he's like, that's more appealing to me. And so I don't know, probably some accident in school, and then since I can't be in the CAF, I'm gonna start rooting around in the underbelly of society, which maybe now has connected him to Andros.
Yeah, for sure. So I just love that Bill is so slow to understand that Wolf has completely betrayed him. Right? Because Bill, dogs. I mean, this is nice. Like dogs are trusting creatures.
And I hate to do it again, but BoJack Horseman, he's a little Mr. Peanut Butter, who's the big golden retriever, dumb, happy-go-lucky character in that show.
It's just it's great. Great characters. Fitz doesn't stick out. I don't see any blemishes in this episode so far. I have nothing terribly negative to say about what I've seen so far. This is really, really good TV.
Yeah. Like I said, we're hitting because people get the dubbed prestige TV too often, and to me, there's really pretty much just Sopranos, Mad Men,
Breaking Bad.
Honestly, even Breaking Bad was really well done, but I never have any desire to revisit it. I don't dwell on it the same way I do those other shows. And then Succession in more modern time are some of the only TV shows I respect. I would actually throw Atlanta in there, but otherwise And this is it's approaches that tier for me.
I feel like now too with how shows are being marketed. Prestige TV is a genre.
They dub it to themselves before it's even done. It's
It's you see shows and I haven't watched enough of them to really have a passing judgment, but I get so many clips coming across my feed of Peaky Blinders, Yellowstone, these shows that are no, it's really important, super good, and you're I bet it's entertaining, but what you just got Cillian Murphy
right?
what is Prestige it just seems to be a crime drama.
Yeah, or the big one that this probably aligns with most is Andor, that Star Wars show.
I haven't watched a second of it.
I watched an episode and a half because everybody just insisted no, there is a good Star Wars now.
Yeah. I would love to believe that.
I would have, I guess, loved. And I'm also, it's so cynical now that anything Star Wars is so just cynically gross that it's you got to be really good to wow me at this point. I'm never going to see a Star Wars in a theater ever again. For sure.
I feel Star Wars. I'm going to try to, whatever. I feel being a Star Wars fan is being at this point, it's being an ethical person with herpes, where you're dating people who have herpes, and so you're just going to kind of stay in that circle of we don't want to transmit to anyone else, so I'm just going to stick with Star Wars because it's going to keep coming out. And there's always more people with herpes coming around, so that's kind of gross, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know if I totally follow that, but I kind of get it.
Well, I don't have herpes to start, so I don't understand.
I kind of get it. Star Wars should be a protected class of media that's just kept in the bubble of the morons who still love it.
Yeah.
Who still love all the slop of it. But Andor was the show that everybody's no, this is prestige TV. And it
hasn't had a breakout in months.
I was also tainted against it because people were its politics are so good. I'm it's fucking Star Wars.
Politics were the worst part of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah. Well, and people were no, it's the leftist Star Wars. It's it's still fucking television.
Yeah.
It's just Disney. Storytelling. It's not politics. And I watched the first episode and a half, and it was so boring. It was just people talking to each other. It like nothing, none of like the thoughtful stuff like this of like framing or like, oh, why did we choose this shot where we just sat in silence for 30 seconds? It's just talking heads in Star Wars sets, you know? And I was like, I guess I can kind of see how the story might be going somewhere interesting, but like there was nothing interesting in the first episode and a half that I was like, no, I'm out. Like, I don't care. Whereas this, we've already talked about all the things that add up to make it work. And it's also deriving from a equally like silly source IP. Yeah. You know?
The difference between Fox and Space and modern Star Wars properties is that Star Fox has not been mined completely dry.
That's fair. Yeah.
Star Wars has. They've covered anything interesting that you could get out of this. And also, like, the Star Wars universe is completely uninteresting outside of the war that they're conducting. Because, like, you'd be like, yeah, you know, this is a planet where everybody's made out of pogo sticks. It's like, who cares? Like,
and it's so clearly good guys, bad guys, you know?
Yeah, I after I saw The Rise of Skywalker, I was like, okay, that's the last Star Wars I'm going to watch in theaters. And, like, I have, like, you know, like many people in our generation, we grew up right around, like, you know, we turned 10, 11 years old. The special editions for the original trilogy of Star Wars came out in theaters. They re-released them. They did all this like fanfare, and then there was like Star Wars fever again, and that really kind of like died after the prequel trilogy, or, you know, episodes 1 through 3. And then, you know, there's that beautiful silence where it's like no Star Wars for a while.
Yeah,
it's like good. We can remember the good times.
Yeah,
and, like not get pestered by this corporate swarm of lotuses and locusts. And when the new Star Wars came out, it's all very referential.
Disney Star Wars.
The Disney Star Wars. Yeah, the Disney Star Wars. And that's where you're like, okay, there's no plan. There's no true intention for this series. There is just, we need to make another $4 billion.
There's just profit mining.
Yes.
They're literally digging a hole, as it were, to mine what's left.
Whereas this Fox in Space is fixing a hole.
We are almost at 2 hours, and we've done Act 1 and 2. Should we do Act 3 as its own episode?
Ooh, that's a fun idea.
That's probably a good idea.
Let's do that.
Because I feel like there's a lot to say there.
Yeah, no. Campers, this is a special occasion. We have talked so much about... We
enjoyed the adaptation so much more than the game.
We've talked
that
twice
we had
as
to break
long
it up.
as the episode we're talking about. So, yes, that's a good call. Junior Counselor Josh,
also, the market closes soon. I got to get there to get myself fed. I gotta escape this temple we're in front of and get back to the markets of Corneria.
Yeah, I'm just gonna Rob64 is just gonna drop off some supplies at my home base.
Damn it,
campers! Join us next week for our conclusion to our discussion of A Fox in Space Episode 2, Fixing a Hole. Act 3 will be the last act of that episode.
Yes.
So
we're breaking this into 2 parts. That's all you need to know.
Give us a follow on Instagram at Camp Video Games, and let me know what other video game adaptations you would like to have discussed on this particular program. Give me an email, campvideogames@gmail.com. Any other housekeeping, Josh?
If your recommendation is not as good as this, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
So good luck, champ.
Campers?
I'm just kidding. I'll watch a little bit of trash. A little bit of trash.
I'll watch a lot of trash. I am trash. Join us next week at the Trash Compactor, where we're going to get smashed into a little cube and then sold for scrap. I don't know what I'm saying, man. We've
Trash
been talking
buddies
for so long. All right.
Trash Camp Buddies will be back next week to talk Act 3 of... I almost said A Wolf in Space. God, why are these so... A Fox in Space, Episode 2. That's what it is.
Here at Camp Video Games.
God darn it.
If you'd like to write to us, send a message to campvideogames@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram @campvideogames. If you want to become a real happy camper, you can support Camp Video Games on Patreon. For $5 a month, you'll be granted access to even more discussions about movie-based video games, game-based movies, full-length commentaries, playthroughs, and more. Whether you sign up or not, we're glad to have you here at Camp Video Games.